Hello, BookTube. I was recently drunk dialing with Shelly Swearingen when she mentioned the unthinkable. Usually when she mentions the unthinkable, it's her saying that her miniature schnauzer is cuter than my miniature schnauzer. That's pretty unthinkable. But this was even worse. This was Shelly Swearingen confirming what I have heard from a few other people in the last week, which is that somehow I have not done a starter kit on dogs. That somehow I have not done that. This still strikes me as unbelievable. I haven't done a search myself because the people who've told me that they've done searches do searches better than I do. So I haven't bothered, but it strikes me as just unbelievable that I could not have done that. For those of you who are new to this channel, love dogs. I go not way back with them, but all the way back with them. I was raised and socialized with them. I understand them. I love them. They are all mine. And I've had more of them than you have teeth in your head as my own companions. Right now, I just have one. I just have one companion now who is recently taken to simply never leaving my side. She's simply glued to my side. But I've also read everything there is to read about dogs, including in the professional literature. So I thought it was high time that I make a dog starter kit. God help us. A dog starter kit. So it wasn't bad enough last week that I hadn't made a Venice starter kit. It turns out I haven't made a dog starter kit. And if one of you tells me that I haven't made a dead Kennedy's or a dead Roman starter kit, I don't know what I'm going to do. I won't know myself anymore. So we're going to go over some books that I strongly recommend about dogs to start you off. Now, the first two that we want to talk about they strain the limits of a starter kit. Because with a starter kit, I like to give approachable, accessible books. That's the reason, for instance, one of you pointed out, why didn't you include Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice in your Venice starter kit? Because Shakespeare doesn't belong on a starter kit of any kind. And also, The Merchant of Venice isn't really about Venice, so it didn't seem like it belonged there anyway. But the first two books that I want to show you are dense. Most of the others are not, but the first two that I want to show you are dense, and they are about the science of dogs, the natural history of dogs. Which, if you're doing a starter kit, that might be a legitimate area of interest. And the place we want to start is before there were dogs, the things that became dogs. This is by Xiaoming Wang, Richard Tedford, with illustrations by Mauricio Antone, and it's called Dogs, Their Fossil Relatives and Evolutionary History. And there we have a gigantic cyanodont. These are among the legendary dog bears and bear dogs of the evolutionary record before the lineage of dogs, of canids, actually differentiated itself. Important to know a lot of that stuff, and also fascinating. The illustrations here are great. They are really accurate, but really dramatic. And this will tell you, I mean, this is an older book, but it will tell you everything, basically, that evolutionary science knows about where canids came from in the first place. So that's one book. And then the other book that I wanted to show you is from Oxford, and it is a completely comprehensive study of what dogs are now. This is by Adam Miklosi, and it's called Dog Behavior, Evolution, and Cognition. This is the second edition, but I imagine that this is going to be fairly expensive no matter what edition you get. I could be wrong. Maybe it's of no value at all on the secondhand market. I have the first edition, but this is about dogs evolving from the canids that evolved from those blurred species millions and millions of years ago into, among other species, the type that we know today, Canis familiaris. Your dog, my dog, in all their infinite variety. And this has everything that you would want on that subject. I mean, it's a textbook, so it has everything that you would want. A million citations, a million good illustrations, not many of them really dramatic like in the other book, but this is what science knows about dogs. And that is, that's good in a starter kit about dogs, because some of you will be of that bent of mind. You will want to know what science knows about dogs. But that's not the main way that we know our dogs, right? The main way that we know our dogs is personally. They are the only species of animal that is allied with humans, that stays with humans even when humans treat them terribly. Dogs, somewhere along the line, when they were wolves, made a decision. They didn't make it consciously. They didn't have a council of elders. But they made a decision that a symbiotic relationship with these hominids, these naked animals, would be good. That a symbiotic relationship with these animals would be good. They have fire. They cook meat. They waste a mind-boggling amount of food. And they're affectionate, provided you do everything they want. They're affectionate. If you were to anthropomorphize, you would see those early dogs millions and millions of years ago, tens of millions of years ago. You would see them look around and say, well, there weren't any of those naked apes here 10,000 years ago. They arrived 2,000 years ago piecemeal. Now there's a large number of them, and we can't help but notice that they are killing everything around them. They're not just killing for food and shelter or for raw materials. They're killing just out of wanton bloodlust. They want, this group of them, this group of 45 of them, wants 2 adult woolly mammoths to give them enough food and enough raw material, hide and bone and ivory and whatnot, to last them through a whole rough winter. But they're not killing 2. They're killing 20 or 40 and just letting them rot out of simple, mindless bloodlust. You can easily picture those anthropomorphized early dogs saying, we'd better be inside the tent watching that than outside the tent eventually being victim to it. However it happened, dogs allied themselves with humans, and that relationship has grown over 17,000 years into what it is today. And the bulk of the books that I want to show you are about that relationship. Now, before we get to that, I want to show you one more reference work that isn't what science knows about dogs. I mean, it is, but it's meant to be much more inviting than that. And it's from Dorian Kindersley, it's from DK. This is their dog encyclopedia. And any of you know DK books will know what you're going to get here. This is brilliantly illustrated in color all throughout. It goes breed by breed. It goes the history of breeding, the history of domestication, the history of canines just in general. As a one-volume thing that isn't anywhere near as technical as the first 2 books we looked at, this is really the one to have. Any edition of the DK thing will be the one to have. But then we can move on to that relationship. And when we're dealing with that relationship, one of the things that we're going to want to look at, doesn't have to be all of them, I could make a starter kit just on this subject, is the history of that relationship. From its very beginning all the way down to modern times. The very beginning, I think, is fairly obvious. Puppies, wolf cubs, are adorable. They're adorable to humans. And they're adorable to wolves as well. They're adorable to humans, and adult canines on the plains of Africa, for instance, have an ability that humans have as well, but that is not fairly common in the world of the wild, especially in the savannas of Africa. And that is the ability to run for long periods of time under the punishing African sun without collapsing from heat exhaustion. So you get a hippopotamus. If you're walking along a trail in Africa in the middle of the day, and you are unlucky enough to surprise a hippopotamus coming out of the brush, well, that hippopotamus is as big as a minivan, and it wants to kill you. Hippos have very bad tempers. It will want to kill you, and it will kill you, because it can reach, I don't even remember what the number is, but something like 30 miles an hour for a spurt, and you can't. But it can't do that for a long period of time. It will collapse and die. Lions will collapse and die. Hyenas will collapse and die. Dogs are all ribcage. Next time you have a chance to, some of your domesticated breeds aren't all ribcage, but look at the ones that look closer to what they are in the wild. A dog has an enormous ribcage. They are able to run. They are able to process oxygen like crazy. And then I don't know how athletic you are. Maybe you don't get any more exercise than I do. But look at yourself sometime with a dispassionate eye, an inhuman eye. Your lungs are enormous. Absolutely enormous. Your pulmonary capacity, it would be enormous. You smoke, so you're directly eating up your pulmonary capacity. But if you didn't do that, your pulmonary capacity would be unbelievable. And look at yourself. Look at how humans evolved. Our fur, the only hair we have that's close enough packed to be called fur, is on the top of our head. That's not an accident. That's not an accident. That's to shield our head from the sun. Our bodies are sweat-producing machines. As I well know, today it's 100 degrees. Our bodies produce sweat like crazy. That means a human who is in good shape can run long distances in boiling hot midday temperatures without collapsing. Dogs can as well. Not your basset hound, not a sheepdog, but dogs, the kind of pie dogs that exist all over Africa today and that did exist thousands and thousands of years ago, millions of years ago. That's a very important partnership, because that means that if you're a human, let's say there are 10 of you, and you are hunting a giant eland or something like that, and you wound it, it's going to take off running. Now, it can't run all day, especially when it's wounded, but it can definitely outrun you in the short term. But it can't outrun your dogs. So they can stay on its trail and then guard the kill from gigantic hyenas, from gigantic lions. They can guard the kill until you get there with your weapons. Don't underestimate that. That's a big thing. Before humans loved dogs, they worked with dogs. But then that relationship became far more multifaceted. It became much more modern. And there is a book I want to recommend on that. It's by Catherine Rogers, and it's called First Friend. It's a history of humans and their dogs. And by this I mean Canis familiaris. I don't mean humans interacting with other kinds of canids. Just our own dogs. The domesticated dogs that we took as a raw pattern and then warped into every shape imaginable. And then, once you're done with that in your starter kit, so we've covered the beginnings of dogs, and then we've covered the biology of dogs and the look of Canis familiaris, and now we've covered the history of that special relationship. The one kind of animal that we don't tend to extirpate. The one kind of animal that has managed to live with us all this time. Human colors, human genocidal, psychopathic colors still prove out, even with the dog relationship. I know this beyond a shadow of a doubt from the years that I volunteered at a dog shelter. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they do. Humans love to punish their dogs. They love to abandon their dogs when the dogs get a little old or a little incontinent, or maybe can't see quite as well. Maybe they aren't as cute as they once were. I used to see dogs like that abandoned all the time for the most callous, inhuman reasons imaginable, except they are human reasons. No other animal would do it. But nevertheless, that bond continues. And naturally, people have written about it. And that's the bulk of the starter kit books that I want to recommend today, is books in one way or another about that bond. Now, one of the ones that I want to show you is one of the most storied of those. It's Conrad Lawrence, and it's his book Man Meets Dog, which is just about him and his one dog. But it is so beautifully observed, so remarkably eloquent, that I strongly recommend it. It's over a century old, I think, at this point, but still well worth reading. There's also a wonderful cartoon, an animated version of this book, believe it or not, with narration, I think, by Christopher Plummer, that is also worth your time. But this book is a perennial classic. But we can move on to other books about people's relationship with their dogs. Like, for instance, this one. This is George Pitcher, The Dogs Who Came to Stay. And it's about the dogs who found him and his people. And they weren't wandering through. They weren't running away. They wanted to join their lives to you. This book mirrors in small and in modern times the process that must have started it all, where some dogs and humans just want to be around each other. They just want to bond with each other in a way that no other species does with humans. Most other species of animals on Earth hate humans at sight. I would argue, there's no science behind this, but I would argue that they recognize immediately that humans are a dangerously defective species, something like the Borg, and that they should be avoided at all costs or killed out of hand, but not dogs. And this book is all about that. It's wonderful, just wonderful, wonderful and warm, a loving book about dogs. Now, the next book that I want to recommend, it is loving, but it's harder. It's a harder book, a harder-edged book. It's, in fact, the best book about dogs that I've ever read. It's Rick Bass. It's his book Coulter, which is about one hunting dog of his named Coulter. It's just the story of his relationship with that dog. The only reason that I recommend it so strongly is that it is so surpassingly beautifully written. It is just an enormously wonderful hymn to a dog, and by extension, at many points in its length, to the relationship with dogs. Told from the point of view of a frequent dog owner and a person who uses dogs to hunt. It's a hard book. It very much means what it says about a dog being a working animal, and the work here is the destruction of other animals. And it's also hard in all the ways that you know to expect with a dog book. With most people, Merle's Door or anything like that, most dog books like that end with the death of the dog, which is, by then is going to be a three hanky book. By the time you get to the end, you're going to be bawling your eyes out. Coulter has the same basic structure as a book, but even that ending is harder edged, tougher. It's not a friendly book, but it is beautiful. And I want to show you, while we're on the subject, a dog memoir that doesn't have that pattern. I've recommended this many times before. This is by Margot Kaufman, and it is called Clara, The Early Years. And this is about the world's most spoiled pug, Clara, who rules the lives of all the humans around her and demands everything. She's adorable and demented, as pugs tend to be, but she's unstoppable. And the most magical, this is a magical thing, it's full of magical stories that you will remember forever. But the most magical thing about this book is that Margaret Kaufman decides not to give you that ending. As far as this book is concerned, Clara has gone right on all this time, all these 35 years, demanding pig's ears, being good for basically nothing, being very vocal in her opinions about everything. That can be refreshing, right? That can be very refreshing. Now, since I gave you the refreshing part, I want to, for a dog starter kit, I want to give you a couple of examples of the non-refreshing part. Because one of the unavoidable aspects of humans' relationship with dogs is that dogs age faster than we do. 5 times faster. So if you have ever made a bond with a dog, you have almost certainly lost that dog. Now, some humans, I would say probably a lot of them, compartmentalize emotionally. I think humans are very good at that. I think that's what makes them so genocidal, so psychopathic, is that they can do that. They can compartmentalize emotionally. I have known many, many, many dog owners who were not burdens on my conscience because they were giving their dog all the basics: food, shelter, medical equipment, medical care, even affection. Sometimes even, rarest of all, fresh water. Sometimes I've met humans who were doing that. But many in my life. I've met many who were doing that, and I've always breathed a sigh of relief. Good. I'm glad you're out there. That's one less dog I need to worry about. But those humans, most of the ones that I've met, if I were to ask them, and I did many, many a time, they would say, well, I love my dog, but, my dog's not a kid, not a blood relative of mine. If I lose my father, I'm of course going to grieve in a different way, a lesser way, than I do when I lose my dog. And it's been those friends over the decades who have looked askance the most at me when I lose a dog, because I don't compartmentalize. And I don't see anything in it. I don't see anything in compartmentalizing your emotions other than typical primate cowardice. So I don't do that. Which is why some of those people over the decades have made the mistake of saying to me, oh, come on, it was just a dog, and that ends the friendship. Most of them don't do that, but occasionally one or two of them has. Devoted dog owners know that there is no difference, that love is just love. And those devoted dog owners have to go through the loss of their dogs, at least once. I've known plenty of people who go through that. They get a dog, usually for the first time. Maybe they had a dog when they were growing up in the house, but they get a dog as an adult for the first time. They live with that dog, have all sorts of adventures, talk to me endlessly about the dog. Then the dog gets older, starts to get infirm, and then dies. And I have had many friends say, well, this is just bewildering. This is just bewildering. They can't handle it, and they never get another dog. I've had many friends in that position. No matter that I gently push them, they still say, no, I know. Bad enough that I get this with relatives that live to 80. I can't do this, much less do it more than once. One of those friends used to say to me, it wasn't until I went through this with Milton that I really thought about what it must be like to be you. You've gone through this so many times. And, I mean, she was bawling her eyes out when she said this. And I know now that you loved all of your dogs more than I ever loved Milton. More than I knew how to do it. And you lost them. All of them. And it's true. I have been through this grief a lot. And there have been a lot of really good things written about it. I wanted to recommend a couple of them just in case, because it's part of a dog starter kit. It's not how we'll end things. The first one that I want to recommend is by Jessica Pierce. It's called The Last Walk. And it's about the end of your pet's life, largely dogs. If you do everything right, and if you're lucky, your dog will live to what is for them a ripe old age. Suddenly their face will be white, their eyes will be milky, they won't be able to see, usually they won't be able to hear, usually their teeth will have gone, most of them. They certainly won't be able to romp around anymore. And you will watch that happen. There'll come a time when you are taking them on their last walk. A lot of times you don't know it's the last one. But there'll come a time when that is true. And this cover is not poorly chosen. There will also come a time when suddenly, like a fool, you are bawling at the back door, holding their collar or their leash, or looking at their bowls on the floor when they're gone. First time you do that, when they're not there anymore. And it's important to read about that. I think it is, because Jessica Pierce does such a great job of it. But there is a book that is even more powerful on that subject. It's for kids. It's a kid's book. It's a kid's book that I'm not sure that I would show it to a kid. It's by Hans Wilhelm, and it's called I'll Always Love You. And it's about a little boy learning this for the first time about his beloved dog. A very simply told little thing. I'm pretty sure that this is not in print anymore, but it hits all the emotional marks as well as anything else, and it does it with pictures. And I thought that was an important thing to mention in a dog starter kit, but I don't want to end on that note. Instead, I want to end on the right note, the note of why we love these people. Because of how nuts they are. Because of how uninhibitedly nuts they are. Because of how uninhibitedly themselves they are. They're always there. They're never deceitful. They're never dissembling. They're never whiny or self-pitying, except for my Basset Hound Lucy. They're emotionally better than we are. That's not a high bar to clear with primates, but nevertheless, they are emotionally better. And they're right with us all the time. I mean, there are plenty of animals that are emotionally better than humans, but we don't live with them. There aren't many animals out in the natural world that have as many psychological hang-ups as humans do. Beavers, maybe, but certainly not bats. But dogs are that way, and we live with them. So we get to see their zaniness, and thanks to the miracle of social media, we get to see that a lot more of that zaniness than we ever did. You could spend, I don't advise it, you should be reading and writing, but you could spend a whole day watching videos of dogs being crazy, of dogs being adorable. So I wanted to end with that. This is a picture book by Christian Vaylor, and it's called Treat. And all it is page after page of various breeds of dogs being brought into a studio, put against a backdrop, told to sit still, then someone throws them a treat and you snap the picture. That's all it is. It's just page after page after page of that. And it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. It is, to my mind, even better. There was a similar book about dogs diving underwater. I think this is even better. Because when treats are involved, that's everything for a dog. And I also took a bit of melancholy pride, a bit of nostalgia in these pages, that there is a particular breed of dog who, when the treat was thrown at them, went, "What are you doing?" and kept their mouths shut so the treat is just bouncing off their faces. And that was, of course, beagles. But everybody else is going nuts trying to catch this treat. And this is a book that will put a smile on your face and keep it there. And so I thought I'd want to end a dog starter kit this way. So there you go. We have finally done a starter kit on dogs on my channel of all channels. God help us. So I'll wrap this up for now with just one small invocation. If you have a dog, maybe change the water. Maybe give them fresh water. That'd be great. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you.